Hello and welcome to this episode of the Business Spotlight. Today we are joined by Vicky Saynor. Hi, Vicky.
Hello.
Hello. So, for those of you joining us for the first time today, the Business Spotlight, it's for us to learn a bit more about local business, a bit more about the local businesses that we have on the show. Today we've got Vicky, and it's to inspire people who are either in business or thinking about getting into business or just on that entrepreneurship journey. So, to kick us off, Vicky, if you could just let the viewers know who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
I am Vicky Saynor and I run with my husband a luxury holiday let business just up the road from Hertford in a little village called Cottered, which is in Hertfordshire. We have been trading for 7.5 years. Prior to that, we both worked in London, not in this industry, and I started out life in investment banking. So I've had quite a journey of different careers.
Yeah, wow, indeed. That is a bit of a traverse to say the least. So, I mean, with regards to the business that you've got now, then, Vicky, what would you say is the main key thing that makes you different to those out there that are doing something similar?
Authenticity would be the word that I would use. I think that when you are a small business, you have the ability to be authentic and to react, be both proactive and reactive in a way that you can't when you work for big corporates. And what makes us different is we created a business, my husband and I, because it's basically somewhere that we would want to stay. So, I guess it's akin to a chef having a restaurant and he cooks the kind of food he wants to eat. It's that comes through, I think, in a business when you're doing something that you are passionate about, that you feel genuinely gut feel, and you think to yourself, would I like this? Would this work for me? And we apply that approach to everything in terms of our communication, how we design our places, what we put in them. And that is can be a good or a bad thing as well, because, for example, this adage that the customer is always right, I think it can be quite challenging for small businesses because we are sometimes right. Um, as a business, as well. So I think we when I say we run our business from the heart, we do. We genuinely believe in our product and we genuinely believe in what we do. And fundamentally, we are doing it for people to have an amazing time and for us to enjoy running the business. We're not doing it to deliberately make people sad and unhappy, which, of course, some people and some of your customers may think that that's what you're doing. And sometimes in those cases, it is okay to say to them, you know what? That wasn't done deliberately, and it is okay to stand by what you believe in business. So that's very much what we're about, and from that authenticity comes the creation of our websites, the writing, the ads, the design. That everything is come from that place. It's not come from copying somebody or doing something that we think somebody might like. And that makes it easier as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes an awful lot of sense. So that's really powerful, and thank you for that share. I mean, I'm sure that's going to resonate with a lot of the viewers today. So 7.5 years. So just take us sort of a whistle stop tour of sort of what's been going on with the business from when you launched to where you are now.
Wow, a lot. In 7.5 years, we've navigated me having a breast cancer diagnosis and COVID, and now a cost of living crisis. So, yes, we have had the kitchen sink thrown at us, of which on every twist and turn of that, we've had to find solutions and adapt. Sometimes those decisions have been right, and sometimes those decisions have been absolutely wrong, and we've learned from them. But you know, the 8 years ago, when we were planning our opening and we were busy getting everything finalized, the country was in a very different place. The economy was in a very different place. The way that people viewed our industry, and by that I mean self-catering, hospitality, holiday lets, was very different. So I think that's really important to, as well as a small business, is that you've got to keep up with the times. You've got to be reactive to how styles change, how customer behavior changes. You've also got to think about your own self. Um, did I think at 42 I was going to get a breast cancer diagnosis 3 months after Chris and I got married? No, we did not. So my very big piece of advice for anyone listening to this is make sure you are insured, make sure you are looking after yourself and what potentially could happen if the worst happens, because we don't like to talk about it and we don't like to think about it, but trust me, if that day comes and you are the provider, you're self-employed, there's not a lot of support out there. You have got to be, you just make sure you've thought about that. Um, what we did to navigate that part of our business, given that we were a year old, it was just Chris and I running it, doing all the cleaning, doing all the marketing. We took on a virtual assistant, which helped us enormously. So by taking on a VA, it meant that we didn't have the overheads of an employee or the responsibility of an employee. We weren't contractually obliged by anything, but that gave us some headspace and wiggle room. She looked after the sort of stuff that was really hard for us to manage whilst we were in countless hospital environments. Communicating with our guests, making sure that things were the admin was we were on top of that. And on the ground, we carried on cleaning as much as we could. But when we realised I wasn't going to be able to do much more, we took someone on to help us out with that. And obviously, that was a huge cost to our business, which was only a year old.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very keen to talk about looking at insurance, because insurance saved us.
Yeah.
And it also saved us when we then went into COVID, because we had a year of me having cancer and then we went into lockdown.
Yeah.
So we fell between all the gaps of furlough and all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
To newer
Um,
business. Yeah.
yeah, so probably wouldn't be sitting here certainly having a conversation about this business if we hadn't have had that. So we navigated COVID. How did we do that? We first lockdown, we basically took the time to, refresh, literally repainted, redecorated, fixed everything that needed fixing. Baked a lot of cakes for the children, homeschooled, which was horrendous. We've got 4 kids.
Wow.
And then reopened. That was really interesting for us because we had a whole new type of customer during that phase. If we can all cast our minds back to how we're all desperate to get out of our houses. So that actually wasn't a very pleasant time for us in our industry. We had our places wrecked actually, people going crazy because they'd, been locked up for months. Um, and that was busy, but not profitable.
Yeah.
I have a saying in business where profit is sanity and turnover is vanity. And if you looked at our books, you would have said, hang on a minute, you're doing, one night stays, 7 days a week, da 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 da. Well, we were, it wasn't profitable, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And then we went into the next lockdown. And of course, if we cast our minds back then, we had absolutely no idea how long we were going to be in lockdown. So what we decided to do, and it was through a conversation we had with a previous guest, but we opened up for free our business to people fleeing domestic abuse.
Okay.
In the second lockdown, the government changed the rules that if you needed to get away from your partner because of the huge rise in domestic abuse,
Yeah.
um, we did that. Uh, Ridiculously hard work, ridiculously humbling, but it was one of the most rewarding things we've ever done. And my God, I'm glad we did it because we literally saved lives. And we just felt really helpless in that second lockdown, and we needed to do something. So that worked for a lot of people. So we did that until we reopened in April.
Yeah.
We then spent the next year not really making a lot of money because obviously we had people that had rebooked, so they'd moved their bookings all the way through COVID.
Yep.
We were in this, kind of real difficult time of businesses kind of not wanting to lose their customers that had booked, restaurants honouring things that had been booked 18 months before, no man's land in terms of what should you do? Do you annoy people by saying no and trying to tell them that you've not had an income for 18 months versus just let them come and oh, that was just horrible. So, we had all of these people in, but we'd taken their money a year before. Again, one could argue, well, you had their money, but we still had bills to pay and rent to pay, rates to pay in COVID without any help or support. So we kind of felt like we were robbing Peter to pay Paul a bit. Got through that. And then there was a complete lull because then people still were funny about going on planes for a good year. So we benefited a little bit from that. And then everybody got on an aeroplane and decided that Spain was for them and Hertfordshire wasn't. So then we've spent the last 2 years working hard to champion UK travel. I mean, I must have done so many interviews with journalists and TV when we reopened about, the new staycation boom. Well, there was a staycation boom because people couldn't go anywhere,
Yeah.
but it didn't last very long. And so now we're back on. Actually, it's sort of gone full circle a bit because competition. Uh, I don't know. Before COVID, we all sort of knew what we liked. People were either in the I holiday in the UK camp, or I go away for my holidays camp, and we all sort of knew where we were. And then COVID mixed everything up.
Yeah.
And people were a bit like, oh, well, no, I sort of actually want to explore the UK, because actually doing that in COVID, oh, that was wonderful. I'd never been to this place or that place. And then you had the people that are like, oh, actually, no, 18 months being locked up in my house. I don't want to holiday in the UK ever again. I want to go abroad. So we are sort of trying to persuade people the benefits of staying locally, the
Yep.
benefits of staying in the UK.
Yeah.
And so we've had to adapt our strategies and marketing and so forth accordingly. So
Wow. Yeah.
lots
Well,
really. And I
yeah,
think that
very challenging. I mean, roller coaster ride sort of doesn't even really cut it with all of the challenges that you've just described there with, the health challenges, the wealth challenges, and that's not even talking about the COVID side of things. So, I mean, the resilience that you guys must have built up over the last 7, 8 years through that whole journey, I mean, must have been phenomenal. So, I mean, I really do. I mean this sincerely. Tip my hat to you for like going through all of those challenges and still being there with a big smile on your face. So yeah, kudos to you, Vicky. And what looking forward now? What's coming up? What do you think the challenges are going into 2024 and beyond?
cost of living crisis is huge. Probably this time last year, I mean, we're a luxury product. Okay. We are the first thing that goes when somebody is starting to tighten their belt. you stop shopping at Waitrose and you go to Lidl, and all of those sorts of analogies.
Yeah.
And we are a luxury product, and we know that. So instantly last year, when things started to be muted in the press about how, energy crisis, blah, 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 there was a whole tranche of our guests that just didn't book. And they are the kind of blue collar types that save up for that special anniversary getaway or whatever it is. We are not cheap. We are incredible value for money if you compare what you get with us to the same price hotel room, for example.
Yeah.
But we are the Waitroses of self-catering. So we're aware of that, and we know that we need to validate, our product more. So we had a whole bunch of people that didn't book. So let's say that's a third overnight of potential guests just not booking. And then we had those that are, oh, I'll stick it on the credit card and deal with that when the bill comes in. So that was them. But they have done exactly that. They stuck a lot of stuff on the credit card, and the credit card arrived, and then they've had to, start tightening their belt. And we know this because we've spoken to guests, we've spoken to past guests, we've seen people that, for example, there was one lady that used to come on her own for a week every year with her dog, and we didn't see her last year. And when she came this year, we asked her why that was, and she literally was like, because I couldn't afford it, and I have given up other things to do it again this year because this week is really important for me, my mental health. And
Yeah.
so these are challenges that we face. And the cost of living crisis, there are many people out there that aren't affected by it. So I need to find those people because I'm a luxury brand.
Yeah.
So I'm finding them now. So that therefore reflects in how I market and how I talk to people differently, and how I expose our brand, and that sort of thing. And basically being resilient, like you said, and sort of bedding down and getting through it, because we will get through it.
Yeah.
But you have to learn to adapt and rein things in. And yeah, our family, we're a family of six. We've cut back on all of our luxuries and niceties and holidays, and we are frugal in our shopping and when we go away. So but that doesn't mean that we don't have people that don't do that don't still pull up in their expensive brand new Teslas and have the money. So sometimes I need to remind myself of that, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But bookings are, we used to have, let's say, pre-COVID, we would maybe take 2 or 3 bookings a day.
Yeah.
Now we probably take 2 or 3 bookings, let's say 5 bookings a week.
Wow.
Now,
Okay.
the value of those bookings may be higher,
Yeah.
but it gives you a sense of where we're at in terms of, and
Yeah.
also the time. Like people used to book 2 or 3, 4, 5 months in advance. We're now down to weekly,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
which
can
which
imagine.
we've had to massively adapt to that, because we were able to plan and plan our cleaning rotas, and we can't do that now. We have to be available at the drop of a hat. If we get a booking in for tomorrow, we
Yeah.
need to be able to clean. Yeah, so we have to be a lot more. So that's been a lot more stressful. Um, and that's the thing about being a small business. If you're going to survive in this, you have to be prepared to adapt. You have to be prepared to
Yeah.
react. You can't sit there on your moral high ground and go, well, no, this is not why I did this, and because you will fail.
Yeah.
You will
Yeah. I think
fail.
that's the key thing, being adaptable, being flexible. And I think one of the luxuries of being a smaller business does afford you to be able to be flexible. It's just unfortunately some business owners that run small businesses themselves aren't flexible and adaptable. But yeah, no, that's some really great shares there, Vicky. Thank you so much for that. Um, I'm going to ask you a question now, and please take a little bit of time if you need to just think about the answer. So, you've obviously been through an awful lot just from the short conversation that we're having here today. But if you imagine the knowledge and the resilience that you've built up over the years and experience, if you were able to go back in time and have a conversation with an 18-year-old you, but you was only able to give one small nugget, one piece of advice to an 18-year-old you, what would it be?
Not to have married my first husband.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh out loud then. I get lots of quick snap answers to this, which I know is not your sort of long-term answer, but yeah, that's a yeah.
Because in my business life, I don't really have any regrets. There are things I would have preferred I could have done differently and maybe didn't turn out the way they did. But, I've had quite a varied career and I've done very different things and that's been, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s have reflected different times in my life. But yeah, so business wise, no, but yeah, personal life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, look, let me rephrase the question now, although I do like your first answer. Imagine if there was an 18-year-old person watching today and you was able, with the expertise and experience, the knowledge that you've now got, you could give them a nugget of information or a nugget of advice from a business perspective. What would it be?
My first boss gave me a piece of advice which I still use today, and in fact, I was giving it to my 18-year-old daughter just the other day. I started out life as a graphic designer uh, 30 years ago, before Apple Macs existed. I mean, back in the days when we literally drew stuff up by hand. And one of my jobs, my first jobs in that role was cutting out and making up models of things that we would take to the client. And in those days, printing out anything on a big Canon photocopier was cost a fortune, didn't it? It was like £1 a sheet or something. So
Yeah.
it probably not more. So my boss said to me, he used to say to me, Vicky, think twice and cut once. And I did. And that piece of advice I apply to a lot of things in my life, in business. So before I go into things, and that could be anything from reacting to an email. So I think twice before I respond to it. I might sleep on it and then I write it once. So it's that think twice, cut once
Yeah.
adage.
Yeah, that's a really powerful one. I like that. So, yeah, thank you. That's a great share. And I'm sure lots of our viewers today are going to be able to take something away from that. So, thank you. Um, so, you're obviously very passionate about what you do, Vicky, but what is it that really sort of consolidates and puts that fire in your belly, that emotion to stir up what it is that you do with passion on a daily basis?
It's a good question because you don't always see me looking so smiley and invigorated as I am. What keeps me going? Well, I mean, I worked in corporate world until I was 28 and figured out by then that that was not the world for me. So, what motivates me every day is that I work for myself. So I have a degree of control over what each day brings,
Yeah,
what I can work on, what I want to work on, what I don't want to work on, who I do want to work with, who I don't want to work with, all of that stuff.
yeah,
I think that's really important. And I think when you're a small business, I think you have to stop sometimes and remind yourself of that because equally there are days when I just think, God, I wish I could just go and work in a coffee shop and make coffee all day. And when I leave at 5, I've left everything behind me.
yep,
Um, uh, you know, the last year's been really pivotal for me because the years after cancer and getting myself back from the hell, the treatment was just horrendous, and what it did to me physically and emotionally was really bad, and I really struggled with my mental health and my physical health after that,
Yeah.
and that really therefore affected how I felt about my business, about work, about everything.
Yeah.
And so now I've got that back. I can look forward and I can be proud of what Chris and I have built. We've also found it easier and better in the last year to work together because, frankly, working with your husband, I'd not necessarily say I'd recommend, but we found our way, and we work together and we live together and we work where we live, right? So it's very full on.
Yeah.
But I do now try to stop more often and remind myself that I do have control over my life, and I think I'm doing things more again that I'm enjoying more. So from a strategic perspective with our business, we're growing and we're expanding, and that comes with, for me, that brings creativity, and creativity is what I really need in my life. I'm not a spreadsheet girl.
Yeah.
So I love to be creative. I love to do things like this. I've started doing some keynote speaking at conferences. I've started doing more podcasts. I've started working with other businesses that I can completely vibe with. And that has really given me back my mojo,
Yeah.
in all honesty, because actually sitting in my kitchen at my kitchen table every bloody day looking at spreadsheets and then going to clean after guests who were not very nice didn't,
No.
and I honestly used to think, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Why am I doing this? What is the benefit? So I've I've also done a lot of, I think there's a huge amount of free knowledge out there as well. One of the great things about COVID
Yeah.
was Zoom. Who we hadn't even heard of Zoom before COVID, right?
Yep.
So you can be part of things without having to take the day out of the office to actually go and have a 1 hour meeting.
Yeah.
There's so much free training online. Everything that I do in terms of, although I was a graphic designer from by trade, as I've said, it was pre-computers. So
Yeah.
I'm self-taught in web design, in graphic design now. We have over 40,000 followers on social media. That's all self-taught. I do seminars. I think there's a lot out there as a small business. If you're feeling tired and stuck or lonely, go and find out where you can benefit, and
Yeah.
that's been really helpful to me as well, because some people are self-motivating, good on them. I'm self-motivated to a point, but you don't have to spend loads of money either. You don't have to spend thousands of pounds on a course. It's
Yeah.
all there free.
Yeah.
Business enterprise, etc. Hertfordshire Council, Visit Hearts. That they were all free services and resources that have podcasts and webinars and all sorts of things. Use it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's some brilliant advice. Thank you so much. Another great share. So on that note, and just to wrap things up, is there anything that you want to say with regards to the viewers today of how they can get in touch with you to find out a bit more, how they can maybe reach out on any of your social platforms or your website? Feel free to just spill them out.
Well, I'd like every single one of them to come and book a stay.
Absolutely.
So you can find us in lots of different places. Bethnalandbec.com is our website.
Yeah.
I'm the eyes and ears behind that. So if you send an email from there or to there, then that will be picked up by Chris or I. We're very active on Instagram, Bethnal and Bec, Facebook, Bethnal and Bec Luxury Stays. We're on TikTok, Bethnal and Bec. I'm not on LinkedIn yet, which I really need to sort out. That is on my to-do list. But I'm really happy to talk to other entrepreneurs and certainly anyone from our industry. I love to keynote speak. I love to share about the passion of small businesses and working for yourself. And we won an award last week. We won the tourism awards from Visit Britain. So that was
Congratulations.
it was a real accolade, being from an industry award. So yeah, always at the end of an email. Always love to connect to people and would always love to be remembered if anyone's thinking of looking for a luxury adult only short break in the UK.
Brilliant. Well, Vicky, thank you so, so much for all your shares today. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And
Pleasure.
to all of our viewers today, thank you very much for joining us. And that's the wrap for this episode of the Business Spotlight. So we'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.